Welcome to BusinessWise, the show that provides you with tools, effective tools of management, whether that's the management of your business or, in fact, of your life. And these tools, developed by philosopher and educator L. Ron Hubbard, will help you become more causative, more effective in your business. I'm Arte Maren, the host of the show, and I'm glad that you have joined me this evening so that we can take a good look at becoming more causative, more effective in our business, in our daily lives. Join me now in our studio in Clearwater, Florida, where we will discuss, review, and provide you with tools so that you too can be more causative and more effective in your work and in your life. Welcome to the Axiom 10 Studios. I'm Arte Maren. This is BusinessWise, and we're here in Clearwater, Florida, with our first guest, Pat Clouden. Now, Pat is a business executive, entrepreneur, who has built a business that now has 300 employees. I'm very glad to have him with us. We're going to be discussing how one controls, builds, and stays effective with that amount of activity, that amount of interaction, and yet keeping the business going. And I want to welcome Pat Clouden.
Thanks, Artie.
Now, Pat, how did you get involved as being an executive? I understand that you got out of college in 1975.
Yeah, I went to Canisius College in Buffalo, New York.
And then, what happened?
Well, I got a job as a outside sales representative for a company called L.M. Berry & Company. And what they did is they represented the Yellow Pages. So we sold Yellow Pages in Western New York and upstate New York.
Okay.
And I was the youngest outside sales representative that company ever hired.
Outside as in you were going around to companies, getting them to sign up for Yellow Pages?
Yes, exactly. So I would go like in a given zip code area and go from business to business in that zip code and get people to get the representation in the Yellow Pages. Okay. So I did extremely well in the beginning of that job, and then I crashed. I literally went...
You were doing well, and then...
Well, they used to rank, I'll give you an example. They used to rank the salespeople. Let's say there was 44 salespeople, so they would rank them in every 4. So then they call them quartiles. So I was always in the top 1 or 2 quartiles for months and months at a time, and all of a sudden I went from that to actually losing that job.
Wow.
And so then how did I go from there to setting up and running one of the top energy sales companies?
Well, it's a good question. Did you, at the time that you were either selling Yellow Page work or certainly when you crashed, did you have any idea, well, eventually I'll just own a company with 300 employees?
No.
No, not really?
No, not at all. Not even close. Actually, I was quite lost. And I was actually under trying to find direction in life and trying to get, just get my life together so that I could, in fact, even hold and get and hold a job, let alone run a company.
Gotcha. Well, as you know, BusinessWise is all about the utilization and application of management technology, real tools that one can apply to a business developed by L. Ron Hubbard. In our prior meetings, when we did the research, you mentioned to me that you came across some information, some tools that completely turned around this crash and burn that you did there and led you to actually becoming an executive.
Absolutely.
What was that?
Absolutely. The information is in a booklet called The Cause of Suppression, and I'll give you a little line out of this. He says, when we trace the cause of a failing business, we inevitably discover somewhere in its ranks the antisocial personality hard at work. So in this booklet, L. Ron Hubbard goes over the social personality as opposed to the antisocial personality, and how, and if you don't have this data, you can actually get yourself in a position where you're less effective. In fact, you're completely at effect, versus being able to be in a cause position where you're making things happen.
So the point you're making, which is a very important point, is that an individual, whether it's the owner of the company or an employee, could be moving along well, in fact being in the top 5 or 10% of the company, and then because of an external influence, an individual who is in somehow suppressor turns the whole thing around and puts it into a disaster.
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. If you don't know and have the tools to recognize what that is and identify those types of people, the fact of the matter is your failures will be far more and far greater than if you had this information and were able to apply it to your life.
Interesting. Well, I think rather than, I don't want to keep the viewers in mystery, as many know who watch the show on a regular basis. We do provide, when we talk about a booklet, we provide them at no charge to all the listeners, and the same is true. The Cause of Suppression, and you can call the number on your screen and ask for a copy of The Cause of Suppression. You're going to be hearing more about how the information in this booklet has been used and how Mr. Clouden used it to build what is now a very, very successful company. And I want to get back to that. So you realized that you were under a fair amount of suppression. You found some tools to handle it, and then ended up in your first entrepreneurial venture, which was? Which was
selling long-distance service. So in the deregulation of the long-distance industry, what I did was I originally put together a sales group that represented other companies, and then we were so successful at that we were able to set up and develop our own long-distance company where we had a subscriber base of 50 to 60,000 customers. And we built that up and then we sold it. And that was a great success. And then I moved from that into the energy deregulation when that occurred. And we put together, there's tremendous similarities between the deregulation of the long-distance industry and the deregulation of energy.
At one time, the Ma Bells and all that controlled the entire scene, AT&T, et cetera. And then, of course, Congress said, hey, anybody can own a long-distance company, so you guys jumped in. That worked well, built it up to 70,000, sold it, and then at the same time, they deregulated energy in the sense of now I could buy my electricity or my gas from anybody.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So you had a sales group then that would contact consumers, let them know that they had choices, provide them a better rate, and then build the company from there.
Exactly.
Okay, now did you, or I should say, how did you then, was there an application of the same rules of who to hire, who to fire, how to choose your people, and how to avoid suppression? Did that go along with you to this new company?
Well, absolutely. And let me give you another bit of information out of that. He says here, as there are 80% of us trying to get along and only 20% trying to prevent us, our lives would be much easier to live were we well informed as to the exact manifestations of such a personality. Thus, we could detect it and save ourselves much failure and heartbreak. So if you got 80% of the people that are trying to get along and are good people, and 20% who are not good people and trying to cause problems, if you're able to recognize that as you're building a business, then you know it has a lot of ramifications in it, because as you're hiring people and you bring them in to work for you, you're trying to build a team. And you're trying to build an environment where people can be successful. And so if you have people who are coming in and they're, let's put it this way, you have this intention of building a business, and if you bring in people who are counter-intention to that intention, they're going to create problems, upsets, and in fact, he actually describes in their failures. Most businesses fail in the United States, and this is a key reason why. The inability to confront and really recognize the differences in these personalities.
Okay, well, thank you for that. You know, you're making a very cogent point here. You're actually saying that for every viewer, for every owner of a company out there, every employee who's running a department, 20%, if he doesn't know these tools, 20% of his workforce are not there on the same terms.
Absolutely.
Are in fact, to some degree, suppressing the growth for whatever aberration or whatever reason.
Yes, absolutely. And it even goes beyond that. I mean, because I have my experience is in dealing with sales forces.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a sales group and they're actually making sales calls, and if they get caught up in the 20% of the people they're calling on, and which are these types of personalities, it'll ruin their sales career. Versus if they recognize that, okay, that guy is that type of personality, I understand that, and he can go and talk to the 80% who are good people and he can actually transact with, he'll be very, very successful. And I found that the best salespeople actually disengage themselves from the 20%.
Naturally.
Yes.
Right.
And then are able to transact with the social personalities.
So this is an absolutely vital tool predicting human behavior. It's no wonder that companies try and do testing.
Yes.
I suppose without realizing it, they're trying to weed out that 20%.
Right. That's what they're trying to do. Exactly. They're trying to find. You hear this all the time. You hear it in sports. You hear it in business. You're trying to build the chemistry. That's what they're calling it, chemistry. So what is a chemistry? Chemistry is simply guys who are working together towards the common goal, and they all have the intention of winning, versus guys who are trying to undermine, like in sports, the coach. They're trying to undermine their other teammates. It's the same thing in a business. If you have personalities who are trying to undermine what you're trying to do, you're going to lose. And it makes that place and business a very difficult place to operate and work in.
Right, I can see that. It's a tough. I don't think people are comfortable with the idea that they have 10 staff and 2 of them, or maybe they are not really with it, and I guess the manifestations of that is they don't seem to care enough. They rumor monger. They seem to create trouble. It was always fascinating to me that a statistic can be going well, like in your case when you were selling well, and then suddenly it's crashing. And it was always fascinating to me that you could not so much ask what happened, but who happened.
Right.
And that's a revolutionary tool to say that if some part of your business or life was doing very well and then it crashed, look for who you connected to. Was there an antisocial personality? And I know you're going to share with us after our break the qualifications or the manifestations, the characteristics, so that our viewers know what to look for.
Absolutely.
You see, but just being able to spot that is fantastic. And if it's going to make that much of a difference, which it obviously has with you, and it certainly has with my clients all over the world, and this becomes a very, very important and unsung, relatively unknown tool to be used in the marketplace. In fact, this is a very good point, I think, to explain to them how the Hubbard management system, as developed by L. Ron Hubbard, is used throughout the world in Fortune 500 companies, in small businesses, in the mom and pop stores, and used effectively because they are tools that really do work.
I wasn't always this good. I had a lot to learn. I had to practice. And practice. And practice. Until one day, my dream came true. Sure, it wasn't easy, but it was worth it.
Welcome back to BusinessWise and our guest, Pat Clouden. Pat, we were discussing the utilization of these tools to recognize, in essence, those who would be productive and those who would be perhaps destructive. You had mentioned that there are various elements that you have used to build the business. Why don't you cover that again with us?
Okay, well, you have to be able to attract, which means you have to be able to put ads and have people attract and come to your business.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise,
but isn't that just a matter of, write the ad and put it in?
Well, no, what I have found is more workable is actually to survey and find out things that the social people respond to and are interested in, and I put those attributes, or buttons as we call them, in the ad to attract those people.
Interesting. So even there, the information and knowledge about what the social personality, who he is and what he responds to, you're saying you can attract the social personality just by having the right message through the utilization of this Hubbard system.
Absolutely.
Fascinating.
Absolutely.
I should remind our viewers again that they can get the booklet that Pat is discussing, and we're going over the cause of suppression, just by calling the number on your screen and asking for the booklet, The Cause of Suppression. It'll be sent to you at no charge, and the materials we're covering you will find in the booklet. In fact, we'll be going into them in more detail. I find it absolutely fascinating that, it's not so much how do I get rid of those who are not productive, but a better question is how do I hire those who are productive in the first place?
Right.
So that's where it starts, on that attracting the right people.
Exactly. And so then when you attract them, then they walk into your place of business, then you have to be able to hire them, or interview them and hire them in such a way that they want to start.
Mm-hmm.
And again, what we do is we go over the positive aspects, the things that we know that the social personalities like,
Mm-hmm.
and what they're attracted to. And it's this idea of being part of a chemistry in a business where it allows you to work versus getting into other things. And we found that good professional people like environments in which they can be productive versus environments that pull their attention off of production and put it on other things.
Interesting. What you're saying is it's not all employees want to slough off and be lazy and not get the work done.
Oh, absolutely not. 80% of them want to, and in fact, 80% of them, then when you get into this whole idea of motivation, it's easy to motivate social personalities because they'll grasp onto the idea, and then with that, again, with the intention, and you can then get into games in your business and things that allow them to participate in such a way that everybody wins.
Right.
And so when you do it and you operate like that, then your business actually you've increased the chance of success dramatically.
Okay, makes sense.
Good. So then you go into, then you have to be able to train them. And what you will find is that the antisocial personality is very difficult to train. Whereas the social personality, their willingness to get trained is their greatest attribute. So then they're very easy to get through and educate. There's a lot to know about energy, for example. There's a lot to know about electricity and selling electricity and understanding all of that. So we go through all of that, and we found that is another actual way that we weed out the antisocial from the social, because the antisocial won't want to train. They're just not interested in that.
Good.
And then you get into the making productive, actually making people productive and making salespeople productive. So you have an environment where they can win. Now, how does this all tie together? I'll give you an example. A woman who has worked for me for years comes up to me in the office this past week, and she asked me, Patrick, is it possible, or do I believe that people can take your happiness out of you? The happiness that's inside of you. Do you believe that people or a person could take that happiness away from you? And I said, absolutely, I believe that. And I gave her this booklet. I told her to read this booklet and apply the information in this booklet. So anyways, she did that. She came back and she applied what she read, and she was so happy. She was telling me that she got her happiness back because it gave her a solution to a problem, whereas before she didn't know how to handle it. So do you think that helped her in the work environment? Absolutely. She is now way more productive versus having her attention stuck on some situation outside of the office where that she is not causative over, she's actually the effect of. And so by giving her a tool that allows her to be more causative over that situation makes her into a better employee.
Perfect. Okay, so the fact of being more effective, more causative begins with a recognition of how to choose your people. Who are the social personalities who are the antisocial personalities. Again, going to the booklet, let's take a look at, Hubbard has laid out 12 attributes of the antisocial personality, starting with the first one. An attribute of an antisocial personality is that they speak only in very broad generalities. Give me an example of that, how that works.
Well, let's take a look at the in a sales room. It'd be like the let's say you had a manager, your trainer's telling you nobody can be trained, right? Or salespeople originating, all the leads are bad.
Right. So
nobody wants to do business with this.
Everybody says.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
So that's one sign.
Yes.
What about, here's another one. Such a person deals mainly in bad news, critical or hostile remarks, invalidation, and general suppression.
Okay. Well, we can, again, in a business environment, that's all they talk about is bad news. I mean, if you could have, 10 good things happen and one bad thing. They're going to latch on to the one bad thing.
Oh, I get you, sure.
And then constantly and deal mainly in the bad news. They're going to be critical either of fellow employees.
Nothing's right, nothing's ever correct.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So they're going to be critical of management. They're going to be critical of other workers. They'll be critical of.
Yeah, but maybe the guy's just having a bad day.
Yeah, and which, fair enough. That could well be, but if he is just having a bad day, you'll be able to correct him and get him turned out of that.
Oh, I see. So when it's chronic, nothing
Exactly.
seems to really make any difference.
Yes.
We know that we may have someone who has the majority of these traits. In other words, any one of us may every now and then be critical or hostile. That doesn't make you a suppressor, or someone who suppresses.
Exactly, and he actually covers that in this booklet.
Okay, so
Yeah.
again, I don't know that we need to cover every single item here. The fact is that there are 12 characteristics. Here's an interesting one, I think, especially applied to business, which is point 5. Surrounding such a personality, we find cowed or ill associates or friends who, when not driven actually insane, are yet behaving in a crippled manner in life, failing, not succeeding. So we're saying that person who's got problems, who's got difficulties, who's somehow batting and trying to handle these challenges is under suppression.
Yeah, absolutely. And
maybe you're not sick, maybe you're just suppressed, kind of thing.
Right. Well, let's take an example. Let's say that a business hired and has as a sales manager one of these suppressives, an antisocial personality. So if you look at that data, surrounding such a personality, we found cowed or ill associates or friends who, when not driven actually insane, are yet behaving in a crippled manner in life, failing, not succeeding. So he's in charge of all these salespeople, and these salespeople are not succeeding. They're failing. Is it the fault of all of those salespeople? Do you see? Or if you went in and you recognized this data, you could go in and remove the sales manager who was causing this to occur, and then you would allow the social personalities an opportunity to win and actually succeed instead of fail. This is a key data. Absolutely.
So this would apply too to the executive who says, "Oh, I'm under such stress."
Right.
Are you saying that what we're saying, and again from this booklet, one reads it, realizes that the executive saying, "I am under a lot of stress," is really saying there's suppression.
Right, and he has to recognize that.
Right, and you as an entrepreneur or somebody well-versed in this technology would be able to sit down with him and be able to ascertain where the suppression is coming from.
Right, absolutely, and one of the ways to do that is actually quite simple. It's you recognize where's the counterintention coming from. So if you as an executive are trying to get things done and you keep running into an area of your business,
can't be done that way, can't be done the way you want, you're getting a lot of pushback on what you're trying to accomplish. Absolutely fascinating. And I'll tell you, there's a quote here that's very important from the booklet. Just because a man rises above his fellows or takes an important part does not make him an antisocial personality. The fact is that people are trying to do well. There are people of goodwill. The intention is to focus on that 80% and not the 20. Thank you very much. We'll see you next show.